धरती कहे पुकार के, बीज बिछा ले प्यार के, मौसम बीता जाए, मौसम बीता जाए,
मौसम बीता जाए, मौसम बीता जाए,
मौसम बीता जाए, मौसम बीता जाए। अपनी कहानी छोड़ जा, कुछ तो निशानी छोड़ जा, कौन कहे इस ओर तू फिर आए ना आए।
मौसम बीता जाए।
In 1953, Do Bigha Zamin, directed by Bimal Roy, captured the attention of filmgoers the world over. This was some 2 years before Satyajit Ray's Panjaali was released. Do Bigha Zamin was a sensitive film, inspired by the neo-realistic tradition of European cinema, and it went on to become a landmark in Indian cinema. And in its wake, it established the reputation of its director, Bimal Roy, as one of the major talents of the Indian film industry. In a career that spanned almost 25 years, Bimal Roy made most of his films within the demanding commercial environment of the Bombay film industry. But even though he made concessions to the demands of the box office, he never abandoned his poetic sensibilities.
I think there is a part of him in all the films that he made. There was a lot of insight to the man. In his films, he had the same melancholic, poetic approach towards his subject. He was always preoccupied, almost obsessed by his work.
Born in East Bengal, now Bangladesh, Bimal Roy came from a zamindar's family. Having left the ancestral land, he chose to come to Calcutta to make his profession in the film industry. Like countless technicians before him, he was groomed in the new theatres of Calcutta under the benign patronage of B.N. Sarkar. He became a sensitive cameraman and photographed some important films made by P.C. Borua for the new theatres, including the early Devdas starring K.L. Sehgal.
There were write-ups in papers about his ability, and he was called ace cameraman of India at that time. He was pretty young, but he had made a name for himself. But after he spoke to B.N. Sarkar, he spoke to me. He said, well, I do want to make direct films, and Mr. Sarkar has asked me to look for some subjects. And I also read some books. And Mr. Sarkar had said, ask her to translate some of them and from English, naturally English books, the classics. Ultimately, he selected his own subject. He read Udar Pathe. There was another subject written by Perimen Mitra. There were two subjects he had thought of. But ultimately, he selected Udar Pathe and made it.
The young director's concern for social realism was evident in Udayar Pathe, which he made in 1944. It was a courageous break from the escapism of the Bengali cinema of the time. Udayar Pathe went on to become a cult film in Bengal.
আমি তোমার চলার পথে বাধা দিতে আসিনি।
কিন্তু তুমি?
আমি আজ সব ঐশ্বর্য পেছনে ফেলে তোমার মতো সেবাব্রত নিয়ে নেবে এসেছি।
It was one of those films that suddenly explode. It was almost, I can't use any other word. It was really exploded. And entire West Bengal at that time was ripe for such a kind of film. And the younger generation took to it like, you know, like they got something after their heart. And they were just almost how can I say, they stormed the theatres and there was nothing else but talk about Udalpate, that kind of thing. I've never seen anything like this.
Bimal Roy directed a number of films for new theatres, and like many of his contemporaries, he eventually left them to branch out on his own.
He was a part of a very excellent aesthetic setup in new theatres, and he could see the disintegration of new theatres at the increasing demands that are there at the box office. And eventually he reluctantly came to Bombay, quite reluctantly.
His reputation secure in Bengal, Bimal Roy came to Bombay to direct Ma for Bombay Talkies, and then accepted an offer from Ashok Kumar to direct Parinita. The film starred Meena Kumari and Ashok Kumar.
हम लोग थिएटर जा रहे हैं। वो सब मेरा इंतजार कर रहे हैं।
क्या?
अब बात कानों तक पहुंची। हम लोग थिएटर जा रहे हैं।
The soft-spoken director who came for a brief visit ended up staying in Bombay for the rest of his life.
He gradually imported his own people. I mean, he had come with his whole unit, but then Ashali Chaudhary, who had written Do Bigha Zamin, he joined. Like that, so many others had joined. And they all thought of making a film under his own banner, create a banner, Bimal Roy Productions, which was created.
In 1952, the first international film festival held in Bombay introduced Indian filmmakers and film buffs to the best of world cinema. The exposure to some of these classics was to have a lasting influence on the subsequent films of many Indian film directors.
That time, you know, the festivals were there, Bicycle Thief was shown, Rashomon, all these films were shown. So one day I had a frank talk with him. I said, you are like my father, I hold in you highest esteem. Are we going to go on making this film all through our lives? He said, Rishi, what can we do? I said, why can't you make a film like this? He said, you get a story. So this film was being made in Bengali called Rikshawala. So I told him there is a story like this. He said, these are 3 short stories it looks like. I said, it can be joined into one page. He said, write a script then, write in 6 or 8 pages. I wrote it in 24 pages and I narrated to him. And he made it. And I knew it is so easy to write or visualize a film, to make how difficult it is. I realized when he told me, you will be assisting me in this film as my chief assistant. But since he was a cameraman, well, I learned almost all filmmaking from that film from him.
Do Bigha Zamin was the story of a farmer driven off his land by debt who comes to Calcutta to work as a rickshaw puller to buy his land back. The documentary realism and the emotional undercurrents of the film brought vividly to the Indian screen a reality and intensity previously unseen. Do Bigha Zamin was more than just a cinematic experience for the film goer.
It was shot entirely outdoor, and it was so difficult. How you can shoot a scene in Howrah station or near the Howrah bridge with 2 artists, you know, almost getting run over by a tram, things like that. He taught then how it can be done, and I'm talking about 1952.
बाप के बगीचा है, खड़े खड़े क्या देख रहा है? फुलवाड़ी है क्या? अरे
So you had to have a dummy camera, take a glamorous heroine in a rickshaw, put that dummy cameraman there, and he used to teach Balraj what is to be done. And a man used to stand with a wrapper around him and with a hand-held camera, and suddenly the scene used to be enacted and the film used to be shot without knowledge of anybody. And you see those scenes, you'll be amazed to see that nobody watched it. And I learned from him, and I used to tell him, how did you think of this? This can be done in this way. He said, if you are a progressive, your path is not very smooth. You have to devise means and ways of how to shoot a scene, how to do it.
अच्छा पारो, अब तू घर लौट जा। तेरा शरीर ठीक नहीं है, जरा ख्याल से रहना। मैं जाता हूँ।
Do Bigha Zamin was made memorable by brilliant casting and the director's intuitive belief in Balraj Sahni's ability to play the farmer turned rickshaw puller.
The choice of Balraj Sahni created a lot of criticism because he looked very much a kind of Western person, his looks everything. So playing a Kisan was not, it was a very difficult selection for my husband to make, but somehow he had decided that he will be able to play the role. And also Nirupa Roy, who had been playing film goddesses, to make her suddenly a Kisan's wife with tattered clothes. That also people thought it was a wrong kind of choice. But he was always right in his subject, choosing his people or the actors, actresses.
But it was in the depiction of the dramatic scenes that the film achieved a realistic texture which transcended the illusion of mere cinema.
When Balraj is pulling the rickshaw, a boy playfully chases a girl and tells Balraj Sahni to go faster, to move faster, and there is a horse carriage, hackney carriage going, you know. So cut at the shot of the horse roofs, the sound is overlapped on the feet of that barefooted man, and he is whipping the horse, and the fellow is whipping a handkerchief. So you know that sound overlap on the whip. That sequence I thought was very powerful.
Do Bigha Zamin received international accolades. Bimal Roy accompanied the film to Russia, along with Balraj Sahni and Nirupa Roy, as part of an Indian film delegation. The film was received with great enthusiasm in the Soviet Union and then in China as well.
He was a terribly socially aware man. Only thing, there was certain restriction which we all had when we came to Bombay, how to survive. But he was absolutely socially committed. He had never taken a theme which is reactionary in nature.
Following the success of Do Bigha Zamin, and partly because of it, Bimal Roy made Naukri, starring Kishore Kumar. The film was a commercial disaster. For his next venture, he chose to remake Devdas. He had been the cinematographer in the earlier version, directed by P.C. Borua.
Paro? अरे ओ पारो, देख देवदास आया है।
रहने दो दादी, मैं खुद ही चला जाता हूँ।
Pyro.
क्या हो रहा है? तो कितनी बड़ी हो गई हो तुम? अच्छा, रात हो गई, मैं चलूंगा.
I do not know what prompted him to pick up this subject. We met and he asked me if I would do it, because he said that if you do it, then I'd make it. Initially it was Nargis and Meena Kumari who were to play Chandramukhi and Parvati. But then something transpired, or something did not transpire, and these artists were not available, and then he shifted on to the new casting. I wanted to see what was done before in Devdas, but he didn't encourage me to see the previous Devdas. He said, Yusufbhai, you don't see it.
For cinema lovers, Bimal Roy's Devdas remains one of the most accomplished and faithful renditions of the Sharat Chandra classic. It is remembered to this day for stunning performances by its stars Vijayantimala, Suchitra Sen and Dilip Kumar.
और मत पियो देवदास.
क्यों?
कुछ ही दिन हुए पीना शुरू की है. इतनी ज्यादा बर्दाश्त न कर सकोगे.
कौन कमबख्त है जो बर्दाश्त करने के लिए पीता है? मैं तो पीता हूं कि बस सांस ले सकूं, और ऐसी जगह से उठकर जाने की ताकत नहीं है ना, तभी तो यहां पड़ा रहता हूं. बस देखता रहता हूं तुम्हारे मुंह की तरफ, तो भी मैं बिल्कुल बेहोश नहीं होता. कुछ होश रह ही जाता है. होश से कह दो.
Devdas was a very rewarding experience. It had a creative man who tried to transplant it onto the celluloid with a great measure of accuracy.
But it was the director's eye for the significant details of the period and the understated emotional choreography which enhanced the impact. Devdas was also responsible for the confirmation of Dilip Kumar as the king of tragedy in Hindi cinema.
अब फिर कब मिलना होगा? मुझे यहीं थोड़ी सी जगह दे दो मेरे देवता.
अरे भाई, ये रास्ता क्या कभी खत्म नहीं होगा?
The critics always was very critical about my husband trying to make a film like Madhumati, who had given Do Bigha Zamin. Why should a man like that make Madhumati? That reminds me of Satyajit Babu. Once he said in Bengali, naturally in Bengali, he said, "Amra to ektai janmo." বলুন একটা ছবি এক রকমের বানাবো কেন? নানা রকমই তো করা উচিত না, যা ইচ্ছে তাই করবো. Whatever I like, I must do that. Why should I stick to one formula? I don't like that.
घड़ी घड़ी मोरा दिल धड़के, हाय धड़के, क्यों धड़के, आज मिलन के बेला में, सर से चुनरिया क्यों सरके, घड़ी घड़ी मोरा दिल धड़के, धड़के, क्यों धड़के, आज मिलन के बेला में, सर से चुनरिया क्यों सरके, घड़ी घड़ी मोरा दिल धड़के.
People praise Raj Kapoor, Guru Dutt especially, that these are masters of song picturization. But Bimal Das, I think picturization of Madhumati songs will beat everybody hollow. The way he conceived Ajare Pardesi and Suhana Safar, picturization of these songs, I think it is the last word in song picturization. Although he himself was not much of a music man, so to say, but his sense of rhythm, sense of cutting, sense of short division, from extreme long shot to biggest close-up, all these things, He was a great master.
सुहाना सफर और ये मौसम हसी, सुहाना सफर और ये मौसम हसी, हमें डर है हम खो न जाए कहीं, सुहाना सफर और ये मौसम हसी। ये कौन हंसता है फूलों में छुपकर, बाहर बेचैन है किसकी धुन पर, ये कौन हंसता है फूलों में छुपकर, बाहर बेचैन है किसकी धुन पर, कहीं गुनगुन कहीं रुनझुन के जैसे नाचे जमीन।
He had the habit of inviting the unit members. Nobindu Babu was there, Ashit was there, and then Moni was there, Rishikesh was there, and they would all sit around and discuss the need for a song, how it is to be introduced with the least bit of intrusion, then and the need for action, if any. That film Madhumati was the result of these various combinations and considerations, an element of thrill in it, and with a good lot of music pushed into it, and music that's not all just melancholic, but there is a bright strain. But even to Bimal Das' bright strains, there was a sense of melancholy.
दिल तड़प तड़प के कह रहा है आ भी जा, तू हमसे आँख ना चुरा, तुझे कसम है आ भी जा। दिल तड़प तड़प के कह रहा है आ भी जा, तू हमसे आँख ना चुरा, तुझे कसम है आ भी जा। तो ये बहार क्या बहार है, गुल नहीं खिले के तेरा इंतजार है, तू नहीं तो ये बहार क्या बहार है, गुल नहीं खिले के तेरा इंतजार है, के तेरा इंतजार है, के तेरा इंतजार है, दिल तड़प तड़प के कह रहा है।
In Madhumati, despite major concessions to the box office, Bimal Roy kept tight control over this absorbing mystery about reincarnation. It was written by Ritik Ghotak. The haunting music of the film ensured its commercial success, but it was in the engagingly simple narrative structure, without distracting flourishes, where the director's style was evident.
I personally feel Madhumati was made for survival, because after Madhumati, he had all these artists, who used to love him dearly, say Dilip Kumar, Vaijayanti Mala, all of them. But what did he make after Madhumati? He made, say, Sujata, Bandini, films like that.
Throughout his career, Bimal Roy grappled with the pressures of the box office. However, he never lost track of his primary concerns, and the best films he directed were those where his social beliefs dovetailed into humanistic sentimental stories. Sujata remains one of his most popular films. The nature of untouchability was brought home in an unstrident and compassionate manner. Once again, the director tells the tale simply and with great tenderness.
मैं कौन हूँ? तू अछूत है। अछूत? हाँ, एकदम नीची जात। तेरे हाथ का छुआ खाना तो क्या, तेरी परछाई तक से लोग दूर रहना चाहते हैं। लेकिन मैं इतनी नीच जात किस लिए हुई? तेरा जन्म नीच जात में हुआ। तेरे माँ बाप अछूत थे, इसलिए। कहाँ है मेरे वो अछूत माँ बाप? वो नहीं है, इस दुनिया में नहीं है। अगर होते तो इस तरह हम पर बोझ बनकर।
Bimal Da sort of believed more in eye expressions, more in silence, more in sort of little gestures of the face, maybe like biting of a lip or a flicker of an eye, like a twitch of a lip or a cheek, or something which sort of gave the right mood and the right feeling of that particular scene. And he believed a lot in holding the shot silent, but he had a terrific sense of timing. I mean, he wouldn't hold it unnecessarily just to make an impact or just to sort of let it seem like a gimmick.
रमा शायद अपने कमरे में पढ़ रही है।
नहीं, मैं अभी उससे मिलकर आया हूँ। वो खेलने गई है।
ओह।
सुजाता, इस बागीचे में तुम बहुत ही खिल उठती हो। जानती हो तुम में सबसे बड़ा गुण क्या है?
गुण?
हाँ, तुम में सबसे बड़ा गुण यही है सुजाता कि तुम में कोई गुण नहीं।
He would come to his artists, for example, he would come to me and very quietly, I mean, hardly under his breath, he would say, Nathan, this is this, this is this, this is the scene, this is the mood I want, and this is how I would like you to do it. And you know the rest, I mean, he'd know that I'd sort of grasped it and I'd give it to him exactly the way he wanted. And so I'd give him a rehearsal and I'd say, Dada, I'll do it a little better in the take, because I'm a take artist, you see, and I don't want to give my full, all my 100% of acting in the rehearsals, because I feel I'll lose the spontaneity when I'm doing the take. So, and he knew that too. So we'd sort of rehearse a little roughly, and then finally he'd get exactly what he wanted.
He was, I would say, that one of the quietest men on the set. Even his process of his shooting was very quiet. There wasn't the hustle and bustle that you see in a studio. The lighting men would address to each other in soft whispers, and they could be heard because there was a general quietude.
Sujata had a lot of lovely songs, lots of them. In fact, the whole music was so beautiful. But one of the very lovely songs is Kali Ghata Chai, Mora Jiya Lalachai. The other one was sung by Talat Mahmood, was Jalte Hain Jiske Liye, which was picturized on Mr. Sunil Dutt.
जलते हैं जिसके लिए तेरी आँखों के दिए ढूंढ लाया हूँ वही गीत मैं तेरे लिए जलते हैं जिसके लिए जलते हैं जिसके लिए तेरी आँखों के दर्द बन के जो मेरे दिल में रहा ढल न सका जादू बन के तेरी आँखों में रुका चल न सका दर्द बन के जो मेरे दिल में रहा ढल न सका जादू बन के.
There is a little simple child in him. He would sit in a quiet place and watch birds, and he was, of course, very fond of photography. There was a bit of that simple rural fascination for the rural scene for him, and that's a part of his personality, I think. He was not an urban man in that sense of the word.
For a man who found self-expression primarily through motion pictures, Bimal Roy's first love was still photography. His portfolio of photographs reveals a camera eye which has the same deceptively quiet quality of his cinema. It was understandable that the Bombay film industry held him in such high esteem, not just as a craftsman and a technician, but also as a genuine poet of the Indian cinema.
He always said, I haven't learned anything. I'm a very ordinary person. I don't profess to being a superman or very intelligent, highly, what you call the intellectual. He said he didn't like the word, that I'm not an intellectual. I'll do what I like and what maybe people like. Simple subjects, simple stories.
As a director who popularized social realism on the Hindi screen, Bimal Roy was constantly battling trends and stereotypes. In Bandini, he took up another woman-oriented subject, this time that of a murderess. The film charts her physical and psychological rehabilitation.
मुझे तुम्हारे बीते दिनों से नहीं, तुम्हारे आज से मतलब है.
लेकिन जब देखिएगा कि मेरे कारण आपका समाज आपके मुंह पर ही दरवाजा बंद कर देगा, तब क्या होगा?
जो दरवाजा मेरे लिए बंद हो जाएगा, उसे खुलवाने की मैं कभी कोशिश नहीं करूंगा. तुम चुप क्यों रह गई कल्याणी? जवाब दो. अगर आज भी तुम मेरे मन की आवाज नहीं सुन सकती, तो मैं इंतजार करूंगा.
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होगा.
Somebody asked him, Bimalda, your films are great, but a little speed is needed, you know. So Bimalda gave a wonderful reply. Do you think that life is a continuous race course where horses are all the time running? Life is like that. It has its, you see, moments of speed, high speed. At the same time again, one walks, one sits, one sits to ponder. See? So I take life in totality.
एक बार हमारे गांव से कुछ 10 मील दूर बरसात से नदी में बाढ़ आ गई. भैया फौरन अपनी टोली लेकर वहां पहुंचे और फिर कभी नहीं लौटे. दस 12 दिन बाद खबर आई कि मेरी जैसी एक लड़की को बचाने के लिए मेरे भैया.
In most of his films, there were very, very difficult scenes, extremely difficult scenes. I'll give a scene from Bandini, where my character, Kalyani, is contemplating to murder the woman whom she eventually murders. That was the scene. It was entirely a director's scene, although it looked as if I did a lot of good acting in that. But thanks to Bimalda, the way he took the shots, it's where she's sitting all alone in her room, and she's really fighting mentally what to do, whether to do it or not to do it, whether to kill this woman or not to kill this woman. And Bimalda gave an effect of a welding going on next door to this particular house or room. And he just gave flashes of those welding lights, you know. I think it was such a beautiful effect. It gave the mental condition of this girl, this Kalyani, in this kind of a situation.
अरे अभी तक यूं ही खड़ी है. नीचे 3 नंबर वाली बहुत बिगड़ गई है. जा जल्दी से उसके लिए चाय ले जा. सिर्फ 1 कप. उसका पति चला गया है.
the distributors always wanted a happy ending, and they wanted the romantic couple to be together and towards the end unite and all that sort of thing. And of course there were suggestions by a few people that Kalyani's character should go back to the younger boy, that is Dharminder, and not to Dada Muni, not to Ashok Kumar, because Ashok Kumar was supposed to be a much older person in that film. But Bimalda was absolutely certain of what he wanted, because the whole essence of that story was that she had been in love with the older man, and ultimately, I mean, she even murdered this woman who happened to be the older man's wife, because this older man was very, very unhappy. And I thought it was obvious that she had to go just to the older man. There was no question about it.
जिसके पास मुझे जाना चाहिए। कल्याणी पागल न बनो, हमारा रास्ता उधर नहीं। नहीं वाणी जी, मेरा रास्ता उधर ही है। कल्याणी, मुझे जाने दीजिए। जले साहब से कह देना मुझे माफ कर दे। कल्याणी उधर ना जाओ।
Bimal Roy always claimed that his films were for the common man. It is their accessibility which give his films their eternal charm. And he also embellished his most intense films with memorable songs.
Barman Dada's music was so beautiful. A very, very peculiar thing of that song was its rhythm. It had a very peculiar rhythm. And it sort of went like this. Da 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 tit 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 da 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 la 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 छुप जाऊंगी रात ही में
मोहे पी का संग दे दे मोरा गोरा अंग ले ले मोहे शाम रंग दे दे छुप जाऊंगी रात ही में मोहे पी का संग दे दे
By the end of his career, Bimal Roy found himself at variance with the changing tastes of the Indian audiences and the distributors' demands for more commercialized films. He was also in poor health. His death from cancer in 1968 was premature. He left behind a number of incomplete scripts and film ideas which he was working on. And with his death, a golden period of Hindi cinema came to an end. For it was never again to capture that certain blend of innocence, cinematic quality, and narrative skill. That unique mixture of art, commerce, and entertainment.
मेरा नाम ही मिटा देना गुण तो न था कोई भी अब गुण मेरे भुला देना मुझे आज की विदाता मुझे आज की विदाता मर के भी रहता इंतजार मेरे साजन है उस पार मैं मन मार हूँ इस पार ओ मेरे माझी अब की बार ले चल पार मेरे साजन है उस पार मैं मन मार हूँ इस पार ओ मेरे माझी अब की बार
ले चल पार, ले चल पार, मेरे साजन है उस पार।